Now it's time for the Flour Power Hour. Do Flour Power Hour. It's a workout. And pump it. Currently, right now, in at least my life, a lot of my grocery stores are out of flour. So if that happens to you, but you're like, I really want to bake, what do I do? So if that's you and you really want to be baking, but your stores are out of flour, or you just want to try something different, or you don't feel like going to the store, or you can't get to the store because of quarantine and self-isolation, then this video is for you. These are going to be gluten-free flours because I don't have a wheat mill. We're going to make two types of flour today, an oat flour and an almond flour. This is a one-time that I'll say that having a high-speed, high-power blender like a Vitamix or a Blendtec or maybe the Ninja, maybe a Magic Bullet. You can try any blender, but I used to make my flours with just a regular blender and it definitely just took longer. First note, this needs to be bone dry. And I'm gonna start with the oat flour. Love me some oats. If you haven't noticed from the last oat milk video where I lovingly sip coffee with oat milk, I love oats. So you need to put a substantial amount in depending on your blender. You just want to make sure that your blades are really covered because otherwise it's just going to get mucky down there. This is a combination of rolled oats and quick oats. Because my store was out of rolled oats, I would prefer to just use rolled oats for this. So in my blender, that is 2 cups of oats. I'm also adding a little tiny pinch of salt. I know that sounds weird for a flour, but I feel like the grit makes it have better friction and blend up better. Just remember that you've done that when you're working your recipes. And blend until super fluffy and smooth. We're gonna take it a little slow at the beginning with some pulses because we don't want it to turn into like oat butter. Oats don't have oil on them, so it won't turn into oat butter, but we don't want it to get too mucky. We want it to be really fluffy but fine flour. Crank it up, here we go. Shake it away from the sides, shake the bottom up a little bit, okay. Crank it up, here we go. Wow, that is beautiful. See how fine this is? This is like icing sugar fine. Flour fine would be a better analogy in this moment. There's still a couple little tiny gritty bits that I'm getting when I pick it up between my fingers, so most of it's very fine, but I don't know if you can see that. There's a couple little bits. So a little longer at high speed. You see how it's fluffing around the container? That's perfect, that's what we want. Lovely. Wow, it's warm. This high blend. So that is an extremely fine oat flour. Oat flour is awesome. It's what they make Cheerios out of. Oat flour is a really good gluten-free flour. The biggest trick I've learned throughout the years with gluten-free flour, I've been gluten-free for I don't know, like 8 years. The trick I've found with gluten-free flour is a gluten-free flour blend is the best. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know, I make my own blends usually, but I also really like the Bob's Red Mill gluten-free flour. And lately, to stretch that out, because the stores have been low on flour stock, I've been mixing in my homemade oat and my homemade almond with the Bob's Red Mill, just to give it a full, rounded flour experience. On that, we are going to mix in almond flour with our oat flour to make like a gluten-free medley from scratch. So these are raw, unroasted, unsalted almonds. Again, that's about 2 cups. Oh, and then there was one. Come on, friend. I'm not going to wash the Vitamix because I want it to be nice and dry. There's a bit of oat flour, but we're gonna mix them together anyway. Again with the salt. Now, almonds almonds, because they are a nut, do have some natural oil, so especially in a high-powered blender, make sure this doesn't turn into almond butter. Fluff it, fluff it, fluff it, fluff it. But make sure we get it nice and fine, so let's see. Start it on low, couple pulses. And then almost immediately after that initial batch, I'm going to turn it quite high. Again, because of the fear of turning into almond butter, I'm going to actually just hand mix some of that really fine powdered almond from the bottom. Just shake it up. As you can see, this is still quite thick. It's getting there, it's getting fluffy, but it's still got chunks of almond in it, so that's not ready yet. Getting there, getting there. Take it medium. Very good, almond. So this one, the texture isn't as fine as the oats. So if you are making macaron, is one dish where you probably want to buy your almond flour properly milled at a mill, because it needs to be super, super fine for any of those like fancy desserts. But for everyday, like I use this in my pancakes, I'd use this, I actually made scones with this, I've baked with this, and it's totally good, totally fine. Almond meal, almond flour, you can buy it or you can make it. So I'm just reaching around, there's a couple little big chunks. But one more blend and I think it'll be good to go. Two cups oat flour, 2 cups almond flour. Let's mix it up. Look, you have flour. You can make things now. So if you're like me and you collect gluten-free flours in your cupboard, a couple other good things to add to your mix would be a potato flour, a little bit of tapioca starch, not too much, and a little bit of arrowroot starch. So to this, you could either just use it as is, or if you collect flours like I do. He loves me. She loves me not. She loves me. He loves me not. Get it? Flowers. Ha! If you have some flowers kicking around, you could do like a cup of potato flour, half a cup to a cup of potato flour, maybe a 1/4 cup of tapioca, not too much, or a couple tablespoons even, a couple tablespoons of arrowroot, and then you've got a really nice blend. If you've got some rice flour, you could add that as well, some buckwheat. If you just need to stretch out your flour, you can kind of make this a catch-all. As I said before, I also really just love this Bob's Red Mill mix when it's available. You can mix this 50-50. Next up in plant-based kitchen hacks is eggs. What? Yeah, it's a good one. I'm gonna do eggs 3 ways, but not like scramble poke. Just click and watch the next one. Thanks so much for being here with me and subscribing and liking and all the things. Check out our newsletter, and I am sending lots of love to you and your bellies. Bye.